Enjoy this story. Title: Caught my wife, 34, sending photos to her brother-in-law, 40. Is our marriage over? I'm a 35-year-old man married to Jessica, who is 34. We've been married for 3 years and have a 2-year-old daughter. Jessica has an older sister named Jose, who's married to Jake, a 40-year-old man. Last week, I came home from work early, hoping to surprise my wife. Instead, I ended up slipping and hurting my back. Jessica rushed to help me, and while she went to the kitchen to get an ice pack, I noticed her phone on the bed. It buzzed with a message from Jake that read, "You've got the best pair I've ever seen." My heart sank as I unlocked her phone and found she had just sent photos and a video of herself to Jake. When Jessica returned, I showed her the messages and asked how long this had been going on. Jessica was mortified. With tears in her eyes, she explained that back in 2019, she was having financial trouble, and Jake had offered to help her if she sent him pictures. She insisted it was purely transactional and swore there was nothing emotional or physical between them. To back up her story, she even showed me a $300 payment from Jake on Venmo from the day before. Despite her explanation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be more to the story. Jessica assured me that nothing physical had ever happened, and she suggested proving it by talking to Jake. She was worried he might get suspicious if she reached out immediately, but I decided to take her phone and went to a bar to process everything. That night, I drank heavily and, when I returned home, found Jessica still in tears. I slept on the couch. The next morning, I handed her back the phone, and she called Jake while I listened. During the conversation, she offered to send him more photos and even suggested meeting in person. Jake declined, saying he had spent all his money the previous day, and seemed more concerned about the cost of this new proposition than the idea itself. Hearing this made me feel sick to my stomach. I realized the relationship had crossed a line, and it was time to make some tough decisions. I told Jessica that we were done and left for work, feeling like I had failed as a husband. I had always thought of myself as a stable provider for my family, but learning that my wife had resorted to selling photos to meet her financial needs shattered my confidence. When I got home that night, Jessica looked devastated. I asked her why she kept taking money from Jake even after we were married and why she hadn't come to me when we were dating. She admitted that she didn't know how to stop and that it was easy money. Feeling overwhelmed, I left home that night, telling her she could keep the house and the car, but I wanted 50-50 custody of our daughter. For the past week, I've been staying in a hotel, playing with my daughter in the evenings, and consulting divorce lawyers. Jessica keeps suggesting marriage counseling, but I haven't made up my mind yet. Update. Before diving into the update, I want to address some questions people had about a paternity test. I know my daughter is mine because I am Indian and Jessica is white. My daughter looks like me, so there's no doubt about her paternity. After my initial post, I confided in my cousin's sister, who is the only family member I have in the States. She helped me realize that part of me didn't want a divorce because I had married Jessica against my parents' wishes. They wanted me to have an arranged marriage. My cousin also set up a meeting with a divorce lawyer and made me see that I shouldn't give up my house in the heat of the moment. Adultery has little impact on asset division in our state, so it's likely a 50-50 split. However, there's a good chance I can get better custody of my daughter since I have a job and Jessica doesn't. Her involvement in this situation might work in my favor. Yesterday, my father-in-law called me, crying. He said he didn't know what to say and that he would have left Jessica if he were in my shoes. Apparently, Jessica had told her family everything after I hadn't been home for 2 days and had blocked her on all platforms. Jake has also been kicked out of his house. I'm leaning towards divorce because the relationship feels fake now, and I see no point in trying to reconcile. Final update. A week has passed since my last update, and a lot has happened. Some people accused me of financially abusing my wife, but that's not the case. I earn a decent salary, and we have a joint account where I deposit half of my earnings. we don't even spend that much. For those confused about the relationships in my post, my wife was exchanging photos with her sister's husband, not mine. After Jessica told everyone about the situation, my mother-in-law called me, wanting to talk. She was staying with Jessica at the time. I returned home later that evening, and Jessica's parents and her sister, Jose, were there. Jessica wanted to speak with me privately. She revealed that Jake had been pursuing her since she was 16 or 17. He made suggestive comments about her body back then, and she had told Jose about it, but Jose accused her of seeking attention. Jessica didn't tell her parents because Jose was their favorite, and she feared they wouldn't believe her. For years, Jake didn't make any moves besides occasional flirting. But in 2019, when Jessica was struggling with rent, the transactional arrangement began. I asked why she hadn't come to me for help, and she said we had only been dating for a month, so it might have looked bad. Jessica insisted that nothing happened again until last year when Jake and Jose started having marital problems. He began messaging Jessica again. This time, Jessica admitted that she liked the attention and validation, even though she didn't have feelings for Jake. They exchanged photos and money 3 times. She acknowledged that it was cheating, even if it wasn't emotional or physical from her side. I asked why she hadn't told me about Jake's harassment when we first met or started dating. She felt no one would believe her since no one else knew. Her lack of trust in me to share such a horrific incident was heartbreaking. In a moment of emotional turmoil, I asked for a paternity test. I know it was a stupid request, but I was in a weird place. Jessica, who had been emotionless throughout our conversation, broke down crying when I mentioned the test. Her reaction made me cry, too. After calming down, she asked if we were getting a divorce. I said I didn't know. Jessica then suggested a postnup before making any rash decisions. Her suggestion felt like a slap in the face. It was as if she wasn't even going to try convincing me not to go through with it. She left with her parents, and the next day, she called, begging not to get a divorce and asking for us to start marriage counseling. Reluctantly, I agreed. So, here we are now, trying to navigate this mess. We're getting a postnup, Jessica is starting individual counseling next week, and our marriage counseling begins next month. Hopefully, we can rebuild trust someday. Meanwhile, Jake is denying everything, claiming that Jessica seduced him for money. Jose is moving forward with a divorce. I know some people might call me a doormat, but I don't care. I'm doing what I believe is best for my daughter and our family.